Well, greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is John Campea, and this is Open Mic. Now, every day on the John Campea Show from Monday to Friday, we take a little bit of time and we take live questions from you guys, the audience. And when we do take those live questions, we try to get them all answered. But we don't always have time to answer those questions. And so what we do here on Open Mic is we do more live questions. And then whatever questions we don't get around to on the John Campea Show and Open Mic, we do in companion videos. But we know we love taking open live forum questions, and that's what we do here on Open Mic here on the weekend, sometimes during the weekdays as well. So that's what we're going to do here today, guys. And we have a whole bunch of stuff to get around to, and we are going to get things started right off the top with, who's our first question from today? The first question today comes to us from DC Patience, who writes, John, is 35 million a disappointment for Spider-Verse? No, actually, it's not. It's if you were paying attention to the tracking numbers that were coming up for Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, 30 to 35 million is actually right where they said it would probably come in. They were projecting 30 to 35 million for they were projecting for 25 to 30 for a while. Those numbers got bumped up with all the great reviews that were coming up from 30 to 35, and it's come in at the top spot of that. I'll be honest with you. If you had asked me 6 months ago, how much would Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse make on its opening weekend, I would have taken the under on 35. I would have taken the way under. So, nope, not a disappointment. It's exactly where they kind of thought it would be. And quite frankly, it's more than what I thought it would be when they first started marketing this movie. Gannon writes, saw Roma yesterday. Best movie I've seen this year. You know what, Gannon? And you are not alone. People are using words like best movie they've ever seen when talking about Roma. There are people not just saying their favorite movie of the year. There are like legit film pundits out there saying that Roma is not only one of their favorite movies of the year, they're saying it's like their favorite movie they've ever seen. Which makes me feel even more awkward about the fact that I didn't enjoy it. I wanted to enjoy it. I love the director. I loved everything I heard about Roma. I love these just make you feel like you're living life kind of movies that feel very intimate and stuff like that. And I love those, but I don't know. I mean, as a piece of art, it's gorgeous. It's just a beautiful piece of art. But so was Mother with Jennifer Lawrence. That was also a great piece of art, but I really hated that movie. And it's hard for me to put my finger on why I didn't like Roma the way everybody else. And I'm not going to lie. I felt the temptation to lie and go along with the crowd and saying, oh, yeah, I loved Roma, but I can't do that. I can't. I have to be honest with my opinions. Because you may agree or disagree with my opinions, but at least you know when I tell you my opinion, you know it's my real opinion. So I have to stick with that. And I'm one of the only guys probably on the planet that didn't like Roma. Quite frankly, I was bored. And you know me, I love tons of movies. Yeah, I don't need big boom, bow, explosions, action. I don't need that to enjoy a movie. But for whatever reason, Roma just didn't work for me. And you know, no matter how great a movie is, there's always some people that don't like it. No matter how bad a movie is, there's some people that do. And 95% of the time, I'm with everybody else. But in this case, I'm not. So, yeah, I'm going to get a lot of flack for that. I'm going to catch a lot of flack for that. Which is why I was tempted to lie about it, but I'm just not. I just can't do that. There it is. Donaldo Martinez writes, just watched the Ong Bak trilogy. Man, Tony Jaa is a freak of nature. The man is fearless. Tony Jaa was kind of hailed as the next Jackie Chan. Now, his absolute struggle to be able to embrace the English language hindered that. And he was never able to become that breakthrough star in North America the way Jackie Chan was able to transition. But there was a very long time, like when that first Ong Bak came out, everybody talked, this is the next Jackie Chan. And the guy he's immortal. I mean, the way this guy is insane and he's so good. And I believe, didn't he have a part in the Paul Walker's final Fast and Furious? I think he had a role in that as well. At any rate, honestly, I think if he had been able to get a grasp of the English language better, I think he would have been a legit North American action star too. equal to the heights of Jackie Chan, but he just wasn't, and it held him back. But yeah, that dude is just insane. All right, Cam Wood writes, think we'll find out how Fury lost his eye in Captain Marvel. Last time I trusted someone, I lost an eye. Winter Soldier, maybe a Skrull. Everybody always thinks everything has to do with Skrulls now. Everything is Skrulls. Spider-Man is a Skrull. Scott in the Avengers trailer is a Skrull. He lost. I mean, look, here's the thing. We talked about this on the show before, and I'm sticking with this. Here's my theory. I think Marvel wants us to believe that we could see Fury lose his eye in this movie. And I don't think it's going to happen. I don't think it's going to happen. As a matter of fact, I think they might pull a little bit of a Hot Tub Time Machine. Because you remember how in Hot Tub Time Machine, you had Crispin Glover, who they meet at the beginning of the movie, and he's a bellhop with a really bad attitude, and he's missing an arm. And then they go back in time to the 80s, and he's a younger bellhop with his arm. And like, all throughout the movie, they had these potentially tragic things about to happen to the Crispin Glover character that makes you think, oh, this is where he's going to lose his arm. But then he never loses his arm, right? Until much later. I have a feeling, and I don't know this, and I could be totally wrong, I'm just speculating, but I've got this gut feeling that there is going to be a couple of scenes in Captain Marvel where you're thinking, oh, this could be where he loses his eye, and then he doesn't. I'm willing to put a couple of bucks down on the idea that he will still have his eye by the end of Captain Marvel. And that there will be 3 or 4 points in the movie where we think he could be about to lose his eye, but then he doesn't. So I'm going to bet that he still has his eye by the end of the movie. We'll have to wait and see. We're going to find out soon enough. Let's see here. Where are we down to now? Oh, DC Patience writes, pardon me, who is your favorite Spider-Verse character? Oh, Peter. Peter's my favorite character in it. But I'll tell you what, I loved John Mulaney's Spider-Ham. I got a big kick out of Nicolas Cage's Spider-Man Noir. I liked the Patty Parker character. The Gwen Stacy character was great. And I've never liked the Miles Morales character until now. Now, I love the Miles Morales character now. But to me, it starts and ends with Peter Parker. And their Peter Parker, voiced by, the guy from New Girl. Why am I freezing on his name? Johnson, something Johnson. Anyway, freezing on his name. That to me was my favorite character in the movie, right there. And they were all great. But Peter Parker's my favorite one in the movie. Ant Banks 1984 writes, do you think the next Avengers Endgame trailer will show Captain Marvel do something badass in the trailer to get people more excited to see her film? Well, I'll be honest with you, like Ant Banks, I was thinking they were going to put her in the first trailer. I thought they were going to drop the Captain Marvel trailer and then drop the Avengers trailer featuring Captain Marvel and get everybody all excited. They kind of followed that formula with Black Panther and Avengers Infinity War, right? Like they were showing Black Panther, they featured him pretty strongly in the Avengers Infinity War trailer, even before his Black Panther movie came out, and I kind of thought they might do that with the first trailer. I do believe they're going to do that, but I don't think they're going to do it just to help the Captain Marvel thing. I think you're going to see Captain Marvel feature prominently in a future trailer because Captain Marvel is featured prominently in the movie. I don't know this, but Kevin Feige's probably, he's insinuated several times that Captain Marvel is going to play a major role in Avengers 4. And because she's probably going to play a major role, she will probably have a significant, place in the trailer. They did that with Black Panther. I believe they will do it with her. Now, I thought they were going to do it the first trailer, and they didn't, so we'll have to find out, see how measured they make that out. Nathan Oswald writes, some of the best squibs I've seen are in RoboCop 87. For those of you who don't know what a squib is like a little explosive device. And in RoboCop, if I'm remembering it correct, they use squibs to do the blood, massive amounts of blood and explosions. So it is something. I couldn't tell you though which movies do and don't use squibs. I don't know the behind the scenes enough to know that. But yeah, that was some pretty exorbitant, over the top use of squibs. And as a matter of fact, just recently, they're trying to get a new RoboCop movie made with Neil Blomkamp. So they're trying to get a new one made with him. And he was recently in a Twitter exchange with some people, We're asking, please, Neil, if you do this movie, make sure you have lots of blood and hard R and lots of squibs. And he said, yeah, well, that's what we're going for. So that was kind of, it's funny you bring that up because that was in the news recently too. All right. The One writes, are we down to the one? Yes. The One writes, we are in a new golden age of Spider-Man. Spider-Man PS4, Spider-Verse, Homecoming, Far From Home, Infinity War, Avengers 4, Venom, and much more. We are. This is probably the strongest, best era. If you're a Spider-Man fan, this is the best era ever in history. Because you've got Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, which is one of the most celebrated video games of all time. Sorry, Spider-Man, the PS4 game. Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, which is one of the best movies of the year. And by the way, tomorrow on the John Campea show, I'm going to be giving how I rank the comic book movies of 2018. Now that I've seen them all, I'm going to do my rankings. And spoiler alert, Avengers Infinity War isn't number one. So anyway, I think I just gave it away. But anyway, but yes, it is a golden age, the one, to be a Spider-Man fan right now because of all that and more. It's a great time. Shazam writes, hi, I'm Shazam. All of a sudden I feel younger because by saying the word Shazam, you know what the funny thing is? In the trailer for Shazam, they show him as Billy say Shazam and he becomes Shazam. Now, technically speaking, he should say Shazam and turn back into Billy Batson. They didn't show that in the trailer. I wonder if they might do something different in the movie than they do from the other traditional iterations of Shazam. I'm wondering if he has to do something different to turn from Shazam back into Billy Batson, because that does present a problem. Who are you? I'm Shazam. Boom! And then he turns back into Billy Batson accidentally. So I wonder if in the movie they give some kind of a plot device that he needs another mechanism to turn from Shazam back into Billy. And I'm sure there's some purists that would get very, very mad if they do. I think it might be something they need to do, but it's going to be interesting to see how they handle that. The One writes, how about them Browns? Baker is Rookie of the Year. I don't know that Baker's Rookie of the Year, but he's having a good year. It wasn't a pretty game. Browns won their 6th game. I told people at the beginning of the year, I believe they were going to win 5, and people told me I was insane because they've only won 1 game combined in the last 2 seasons. I said they were going to win 5 this year. They won 5, their 5th the other week, and this week they won their 6th, although it was ugly. Let's not pretend like the Browns are an all-star team at this point. It was an ugly win, but it was a win. Their 6th win of the season, man. I don't know that Baker's my Rookie of the Year, but he's certainly having a successful campaign to start the year off with. All right, let's move on here. MuseTac Reviews writes, hey, John, were you disappointed with the way they used the 90s Flash in the crossover? Like, where did he go? No, I honestly didn't expect him to be a major figure in that. The major figures for the crossover were Arrow, Flash, and Supergirl. Those are your major figures. And we knew they were going to bring in Batwoman. And we knew Superman was going to play me. There's only so much time to go around. So, frankly, I was not expecting them to use the 90s Flash much at all. And besides, we've gotten lots of, I keep forgetting the actor's name, Ship. His name's something Ship. Anyway, the actor who played the original 90s Flash, we've gotten plenty of him in the Flash TV series, right? We've gotten plenty of it. It's not like we've never seen him as the Flash in the new universe, and then all of a sudden he's there, but only there for a scene or two. It wasn't like that. We've gotten lots of him as the Flash. So, no, I wasn't disappointed. I mean, you don't want to get too convoluted. You don't want to spend too much attention on too many different characters. They already had a lot of the characters they had to focus on, but they needed to keep their focus of their story on their big 3, Arrow, Flash, Supergirl. They needed to keep their focus there with a little bit of leftover focus for Superman and Batwoman. And, there's not a lot of other time left over. So, no, I was perfectly fine with it, to be honest with you. Let's see. Martin Veloik writes, John, why didn't Sony make 5 standalone animated Spider-Man movies before making Spider-Verse? There's no chance it can work otherwise, stupid argument. Of course, what Martin is referring to is in Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, you have 5 Spider-Men, right? You have Peter, you have Patty Parker, you have Gwen Stacy, you have Spider-Man Noir, you have Spider-Ham, and you have Miles Morales. So there's actually 6. And what he's joking about is that people keep saying, well, the reason the DCEU hasn't worked is because they didn't do standalone movies first and then do it. No, that's nonsense. That's nonsense. That's absolute nonsense. That's not why they didn't work. That's not why. If you're ever in a debate with somebody, here's the one that shuts it down. If you're ever in a debate with somebody that says the reason the DCEU didn't work the way it should have worked is because they didn't do standalone movies first. Easy. Shut it down with this. Guardians of the Galaxy. They didn't need to make 5 separate Guardians. They didn't need to do a Rocket standalone movie first. They didn't need to do a Star-Lord standalone movie and a Gamora standalone movie and a Drax the Destroyer standalone movie and a Groot standalone movie. They didn't need to do those 5 standalone movies before doing Guardians of the Galaxy. They just made Guardians of the Galaxy. But here's the catch. They made it really good. That's all it needed. The reason the DCU, despite the fact that there are people, including this guy, who've enjoyed the DCU movies, the reason it did not reach its potential is not because of what formula did they follow. Did they do a team up first versus 4 or 5 standalones first? That's not why. It's because they made movies that not everybody embraced and loved. It's that simple. Guardians of the Galaxy didn't need 5 standalone movies first before doing a Guardians of the Galaxy. They just made a great, fun, engaging, entertaining movie that everybody loved. Not everybody, but practically everybody loved. You know, you hear me say all the time, winning cures everything. That's it. Win. Go out and make a great movie. There's your win. And that's why. I mean, they made Man of Steel, which I think is a top 10 comic book movie of all time, but hey, half the people didn't like it. That's the problem. They made Suicide Squad. Most people didn't like it. I did, but most people didn't like it. That's the problem. They made Batman versus Superman. It doesn't matter if you did a standalone Batman movie first or a Superman movie, and then 5 other standalone movies, and then Batman. It wouldn't have mattered because you still had the same movie and people didn't like the movie. I did, but most people didn't. So anyway, that's what Martin, so it's a very good analogy right there. You didn't need to make 5 standalone Spider-Man movies before doing Spider-Verse. They just made Spider-Verse, and it worked great. All right, DC Patience writes, guess what? My new boss is awesome, and life is great. That's fantastic to hear, D. What are the biggest challenges you expect in 2019 with your new gig? Well, the first and most immediate challenge is getting a new studio. We are in the midst right now. I've been spending time over the past couple of weeks going around with real estate agents and looking at new studio space. And it is tough finding studio space in LA, man. It's tough because in the last couple of years, Netflix, Hulu, Amazon, they eat up every square inch of studio space anywhere. They are buying it up like crazy. So that's been challenging. And we have to be out of our current studio because we've had enough of that space. With all the different problems we have now, leaky roofs and all, and we've got to be out by the end of February. And we haven't found a new space yet. So that's the first challenge, is just finding a new space. After that, the big challenge is, you know, by the end of 2019 is selling a show. That's it. We just need to sell one. I've told you guys before that the focus of this job I've taken of now joining this company, becoming an owner of this company, is we're not building YouTube channels there. That's not what we're doing. We are there to produce shows that will play on networks. And I just announced this week, of course, that one of the shows that we produce at the Stream and at Power Media, Johnny has this great show called Hey Queen, and we just announced this week that Netflix has announced that they're going to start airing the show. Netflix has picked up our show Hey Queen, which is great. And it all goes to Johnny and his talent and you know the incredible work he's put into it, and that's great. And it's one of the shows that we produce there, and that's awesome. So there's one, but you know, I spend most of my day, most of my day is spent on the John Campea show, but all the remaining time of my days are building and creating new shows and then budgeting them and all that kind of stuff, and then working on pitching them to networks to get a network to pick up a show. So the big challenge for 2019 is by the end of the year, having one of those shows picked up. That's the goal. That's the dream, if you will. So that's going to be the big challenge. And then, of course, on top of that, maintaining, and trying to increase the level of quality and excellence with the John Campea Show, which is, of course, my main thing. And then we'll go from there. But those are the challenges facing. But I'm glad you're loving your new boss, D. That's always good when you can enjoy your boss. Snake Jerusalem writes, I think the part of the journey is the end line is from the end of the movie. Tony gets rescued from space, but sacrifices himself at the end. I don't think so. It just fit too perfectly in with what he was talking about. He's like, look, I'm going to die out here, and that's okay. Part of the journey is the end. And you could hear it in his voice as well. I really do think is that. Now, what you're suggesting is totally feasible. I mean, Marvel has spent some time doing misdirects, right? They totally have. But I honestly don't feel like there are any misdirects in this particular trailer. I think there will be misdirects. But I don't know that there would be any in this trailer. But hey, the scenario you just constructed, Snake Jerusalem, totally fits. It does, and it's very well it could. I'll still stick with the idea that I don't think it will, and I do think it's from the beginning of the film. But we will find out soon enough. All right, Cinema Sweets writes, in 2020, the MCU and Bond hit 25 films. Which is the bigger deal? Bond. Bond is the much bigger deal. Because it's one thing to become trendy and to be a hot thing for a while. And the MCU's been around now for like 10 years. But it's another thing to be a franchise with the staying power of generations. The James Bond franchise is one that has been around for generations. My grandfather was watching James Bond movies. My dad been watching James Bond movies. I watch James Bond movies, and probably whenever I have a kid, my son will be watching James Bond. I mean, so to me, the number of films is impressive for both, but understanding that the Bond franchise is not just one that's capitalizing on a hot trend right now, like comic book movies. They're the biggest thing right now is comic book movies, but rather it has not even just lasted years, it has lasted generations. And the name James Bond has been a household name for generations as a movie character. So while both are incredibly impressive and both are incredibly laudable, the more impressive one to me, the bigger deal to me is the James Bond one because of its staying power, just its pure staying power. All right, Anthony R. writes, Part 1. Hey, John, what's up? Following the crossover, what's the likelihood that Batman is actually shown on the CW in Infinity Crisis, or in Infinite Crisis? Crisis on Infinite Earths. Much better than it ever has been before. I mean, from what I don't watch Titans, but I'm hearing that Batman is going to be who they fight at the end, maybe on Titans Season 1, and I don't know that for sure, but that's just the whispers I've been hearing. They certainly name-drop Batman a hell of a lot in Elseworld. They name-dropped him a ton. Even having a scene in his office in Wayne Tower. It seems, I remember, there was an age and an era when Superman and Batman were off limits to TV. Right? They were their two most valuable properties. You had to protect them. You can't risk them looking bad on television or movie, and that you just wouldn't have them on television. Well, that clearly changed with Superman. They clearly changed that with Superman, because now Superman is the jobber boy on the Supergirl show, and it looks like they're heading that way. I would say it's a 50-50 chance at this point, Anthony, that we're going to see Batman, if not on Crisis on Infinite Earths, then before. I think it's going to happen sooner rather than later. Than with the Titans thing and all that kind of stuff. I think it's going to happen sooner rather than later. So I will go so far as to say it's a coin toss. It's a 50-50 odds at this point. All right. Next up, Ben Rayner writes, in order of CW crossovers, 1 Invasion, 2 Elseworlds, and 3 Crisis on Earth X. Invasion is like the Avengers for me. It's the first giant meetup. And remember, there were crossovers before that, but it was before like Supergirl came around. I would actually invert that. Well, no, I will almost invert that. I will almost invert that. I will say the best one was Crisis on Earth X. That to me was the best one they did. It was the most fun for me. Next one would probably be Invasion, and the next one would be Crisis, or the next one would be Elseworlds. I liked Elseworlds, but it didn't quite live up to, certainly not up to Crisis for me, and not up to Invasion either. But we're all going to have different orders, right? That's the fun of it. All right, next up, Anthony R. Where are we? Anthony R. writes, part 2, also, over under 50% that we see the Smallville Earth as an alternate Earth and John Diggle as John Stewart on Earth 90. I'm going to take the under on that. I know there was that one little joke in it about where's your ring, but they didn't specify anything. I think that was just a little wink and a nod. I don't think that we're going to see a Diggle as Green Lantern. I don't think that's what they're doing. So I'm going to take the under 50% on that. I'm not saying it's a 0% chance. Not at all. But if you're going to set the line at 50, I'm going to take the under on that. Luke1234 writes, over under 85%, Godzilla rips or blasts 1 to 2 of King Ghidorah's heads off. Ooh, 85's a big number. 85's a big number. Now, obviously what you're saying makes total sense. He's going to go after one head at a time, right? And he'll get through a couple of them. But 85's a big I'm going to have to take the under. Like, I do think that's what's going to happen. I do. But 85 is too high of a number for me to be comfortable with. So I'm going to take the under on that. I'm going to take the under on the 85. All right. Let's see here. DC Patience writes, wherever I go, the wind follows, and the wind smells like rain. I love that line so much. One of the best characters in the movie, no spoilers. Well, she's talking about Spider-Man. One of the characters in Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. It is a great line. It's a great line. And I love the way the actor, because I won't spoil which character says it. I love the way the actor says it, too. It's a really, really good line. It's pretty sweet. Nathan Oswald writes, let's see here. 7.5 opening for Mortal Engines. Ouch. Ouch indeed. Because we were saying that Robin Hood, at $100 million budget, made under 10, made 9 point something on its opening weekend. We said this is probably the biggest flop of the year. Forget that. Mortal Engines is the biggest flop of the year. It is also a $100 million movie, which, by the way, is super impressive because that movie is nonstop visual effects. Nonstop visual effects. And they made that movie for $100 million. Hollywood, take note. You don't need to spend $250 million to make a high visual effects movie. And even though Mortal Engines is not a good movie, in my opinion, it's actually quite a very bad movie, in my opinion, it looks beautiful. I think it's a beautiful looking film. So Hollywood, take note. This whole nonsense that we need to spend $250 million to make a visual effects heavy movie. No, you don't. Mortal Engines, which even though it's a bad movie, looked incredible. And they did it for $100 million. So stop with that nonsense right now. Anyway. Yeah, that could very well be. Again, it's still a movie making $7.5 million, eating up more of the box office. But yeah, it is probably the biggest flop of the year. It's going to be right up there in the conversation amongst biggest flops of the year, and deservedly so. It's a bad film, unfortunately. Let's see. Spencer Main writes, Aunt May in Spider-Verse is awesome. Yes, the movie just opened, so I don't want to go into much detail, but I believe it's Lily Tomlin does the voice of Aunt May. And yes, she is great. And I love the way they used Aunt May in the movie. I thought it was a really nice surprise. So, yeah, I mean, it's not a surprise that she's there because she's listed in the IMDb credits. But, I mean, the way they used her was really a nice surprise, and I enjoyed the Aunt May character a lot. All right. David Jeffrey writes, took your earlier recommendation, watched Lost. Nice. Amazing show, absolutely floored, maybe my favorite ever. Thanks for the suggestion, John. You know what? I was like you, David. I was late to the party with Lost. Lost was actually in between its second to last season and final season when finally some friends of mine who've been telling me for years to watch Lost finally convinced me to watch Lost. So I binged the entire series before the final season started. And yeah, I loved it. It was great. It's not in my top 3. My top 3 all-time favorite television series is Ronald D. Moore's Battlestar Galactica. It's Sons of Anarchy, and it's Spartacus. And those are my top 3. but yeah, Lost is great, and I was late to the party too. I was let down, like most people. I didn't hate the final season, but I wasn't exactly thrilled with the final season either. But yeah, it's there's a lot of people out there, David, that when you start the conversation of greatest TV show ever, a lot of people are going to start off that conversation with Lost. And yeah, I'm glad you finally had a chance to watch it, man. Stubble McShave writes, over under 50%, Joss Whedon directs a movie by the end of 2021. I would say over, and you know what? I am feeling more and more like Joss Whedon will direct a Marvel film again. I think Joss Whedon will direct a Marvel film again. There was a bit of a cold relationship between Marvel and Joss Whedon for a while after Ultron. I guess they had some bad experiences together, whatever. But I mentioned about a year ago, I started seeing Joss Whedon showing up to new Marvel premieres. And he hadn't for a while. And now he was coming to Marvel premieres. And then on the Infinity Blu-ray, there's a special feature with a bunch of the Marvel directors sitting around a big open table, including the Russo brothers, Taika Waititi, and Joss Whedon was there too. And so I think it's been looking more and more like Joss Whedon has been brought back, or he's decided it's time to come back in. And I won't be surprised at all. So I believe we will see a Joss Whedon directed film by the end of 2021. And I believe there's even a chance, I'm not saying it's likely, but I do believe there is a chance that one of those films could be a Marvel film. We'll wait and see, but I think there's a chance for that. Dakota Barber writes, saw Aquaman with my parents and we loved it. Love the cast, especially Momoa and Patrick Wilson. Huge spectacle, especially in the third act. Some iffy CGI at times and a few lines didn't work, but otherwise I loved it. My favorite DCU movie. I quite enjoyed it. I went to go watch it again last night. And I want to pull up the name of the guy because I always mispronounce his name and I'm sure I'm going to mispronounce it again. But we went to go see it last night at the AMC Burbank 16 at that special Amazon Prime member screen that they did across the country, right? And to our surprise, I didn't know this was happening, but Yahya Abdul Mateen II, who plays Black Manta, was there at the theater. And they brought him. It was a really nice surprise. He came out, introduced the movie for everybody. It was a really, really great moment. That's one of the things I do love about living in LA, is that a lot of times you'll be at a movie and you just never know who's going to show up at that movie. And so Black Manta came out, did the introduction to it. It was great. I had a really wonderful time. I'm not going to say it's my favorite DCU movie. It's my number 3 favorite. Obviously, number 1 is Man of Steel. And I would still give Wonder Woman the slight edge over Aquaman. Not by a mile, but I would give Wonder Woman the slight edge over Aquaman. But Aquaman very comfortably fits into my 3rd favorite. I liked it more than Justice League. I liked it more than Suicide Squad. I liked it more than Batman vs. Superman. I thought they did a really good job. There are some things that James Wan does amazing as a director. There are a couple of things that James Wan still struggles a little bit with as a director. And there were certainly moments in the movie I think they could have done without. But overall, it was a good, fun, enjoyable, entertaining, crowd-pleasing movie that is definitely a win for DC. So, yeah, I enjoyed it. I'm glad you liked it, Dakota. And I'm glad your parents did, too. All right, let's move on here. Richard Karate writes, I know you're a fan of the WWE, but have you ever seen TNA Wrestling, now called Impact Wrestling? Not as good as WWE, but did have some impressive matches in its day. Yeah, when TNA really got rolling, I watched a little bit of TNA. I mean, I was always disgusted by the fact they called it TNA. I mean, literally it stood for Total Nonstop Action, which is stupid. They really just called it TNA to sound like tits and ass. TNA Wrestling, guys, you know? And I always thought that was juvenile of them to call their thing that, but whatever. Now they call it Impact Wrestling. I didn't, to be honest with you, until you asked me that, I didn't even know it still existed now. I didn't know it still existed to this day. I mean, now the two big ones are both WWE properties, right? There's WWE and there's NXT. And my buddies keep showing me video clips of things that happen in NXT. These guys are insane. The things wrestlers do these days is absolutely insane. Like stuff I never even would have believed physically possible back in the day. You know what I'm saying? But I remember when they're getting TNA going, like, what was triple Jeff Jarrett? That's it, double J. Jeff Jarrett was kind of like the main guy, and it felt kind of dirty because he was also one of the owners of the company, and he made himself the main guy. That always felt weird, but yeah, honestly, until you brought that up, Richard, I didn't even know the thing still existed, so that's interesting to know. Hands of Stone writes, if you could have Cavill as Superman or Affleck as Batman one last time in their own film, which would you choose? My favorite is Affleck as Batman, but honestly, if I were to answer that question right now, I would probably see Cavill as Superman. Because, look, there is still, remember, Ben Affleck, I've told you this for years, Ben Affleck still does have one movie left on his contract. And I believe there's a 50-50 chance that Warner Brothers will exercise that one last movie on his contract. I think it's 50-50, but after that, he's done. He might already be done without doing that one last one, but either way, there's one and done. With Henry Cavill, I feel like there's still a way there to save this thing. So, like, I'm going to say if I had to pick one, I'd take the Henry Cavill Superman because I believe getting one more with Cavill as Superman could very well mean we have Cavill as Superman for years to come. Whereas with Ben Affleck, I know it's not it. Even if he is in one more movie, I know that's the end of it then after that. So there'd be more meaning for Cavill as Superman because it would mean not only would we get him for one more, but it would probably mean we'd get him for more. So I'm going to say Cavill as Superman. All right. Anthony R. writes, Part 3, Crisis on Infinite Earths changed DC forever. Do you see... you mean like the comic books? Yes, they did. Do you foresee CW using that plot to merge all the shows / Earths? Arrow, Flash, and Supergirl won't go on forever separately. Yes. Yeah, at minimum. At minimum, I think what they're going to do on Crisis on Infinite Earths is merge all the Earths into one reality. And really, that's what they should do. I'm not a fan of this multiple universes, multiple dimensions, multiple Earths. I've never been a fan of that stuff. There's some cool stuff you can do with it. For sure. I'm not saying there isn't. There is. But overall, I just think it's a bad move. And by the way, you'd think they would have learned from their history. DC, the comic book company back in the day, they had Crisis on Infinite Earths specifically to deal with the problems of having all these multiple Earths created for them. And they said, you know what, we've got to fix this universe. We're going to simplify it. We're going to make it one Earth, and we're going to do this big storyline called Crisis on Infinite Earths, where we're going to merge all the worlds into one. Why then didn't they learn that lesson when they were doing their Arrowverse saying, hey, let's do multiple universes? And to me, it just kind of detracts from it. So there's that. Now, some people think it may go beyond that, Anthony, and not only merge in all the different Earths in the Arrowverse, but might even be Warner Brothers' way of trying to merge in the movie and the television universe into one continuity. I don't think they're going to do that, but there are some people that feel like they will, and they've got some pretty decent arguments to make about that, but I still don't think that's what they're going to do. But yes, absolutely, Anthony. I think at the bare minimum, they're going to do is merge all those Earths together. Absolutely. And you're going to have Supergirl and Arrow and Flash and Batwoman and all that. They will all live in the same universe. Look, let's face it. As of right now, all the Arrowverse shows happen in the same universe anyway, except for one, and that's Supergirl. Batwoman was on Earth 1. Arrow is on Earth 1. Flash is on Earth 1. Legends of Tomorrow is on Earth 1. It's only Supergirl that's out on Earth 38. So really, it's not that big of a step to merge Supergirl in with the reality of the rest of the Arrowverse at this point. Spencer Main writes, your favorite comic book hero minus Spider-Man. I've said for a long time, a lot of people, might surprise a lot of people, but my all-time favorite comic book character is Magneto. Magneto's my all-time favorite comic book character. Now, if you want to ask specifically hero, because Magneto, whether he's a hero or not, is up for interpretation. I know it's going to sound boring to say, but it's true. Batman. I mean, Batman all day, every day. All day, every day, Batman. Favorite pure hero? Batman. But my favorite overall comic book character for many years, ever since I read Age of Apocalypse, has been Magneto. Let's see. Lyle Navin writes, Forbes says Aquaman is on track to make 800 million to $1 billion. I still don't believe it, but I didn't think Venom could hit 800 million either. I thought the best Venom could hope for was 600 million. The best it could hope for. And I thought that was an outside shot. And I never thought it would hit 800 million. Lo and behold, it did. Aquaman, I'm not sure which one I prefer more, Venom or they're both very fun. I might give the slight edge to Aquaman. But you know, Aquaman's coming out at Christmas time. It's going to probably be the event film to see. I still do not think it's going to hit 800 million. I still do not believe it's going to hit 800 million, but it's possible. Because again, I didn't think Venom would, and Venom did. Last I checked, I think Venom finished out its run at $852 million. That movie, everybody said, that movie can't work without Spider-Man in it. Sony's stupid. You can't do a Venom movie without Spider-Man. Nobody cares about Venom without Spider-Man. No one's going to go see that movie without Spider-Man. $852 million later. And you know, I thought it could succeed. But even I didn't think it was going to hit 800 million. So it's going to be interesting. Let's kind of wait and see. Let's see what's going to happen there. Darth Wayne 97 writes, saw Spider-Verse, best movie of 2018. A movie of this caliber should be honored as one of the best picture contenders of this year, if nominated. Yeah, it's not going to be. I'm going to tell you right now, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse is not going to be nominated for Best Picture. But I will also tell you emphatically it absolutely should be. I don't feel quite as strong about my belief that Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse should be nominated for Best Picture as I was for Logan. I think Logan was better than Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. I didn't just think Logan was one of the best films of the year. I thought Logan was the best movie of last year. But whatever. And it never got nominated. So I don't believe for a second. It should. Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse should get nominated, but it will not. I'm just going to tell you that right now. There's no way it's going to get nominated. It looks like a comic book movie will get nominated for Best Picture this year, but it's the wrong one. It's starting to look more and more like Black Panther, which if you saw my review, you know I love Black Panther. I love that movie. I think it's an important film. I thought it's a groundbreaking film. But in terms of pure quality, it's great. It's not a Best Picture contender, but it's probably going to get a Best Picture nomination. And it's not even in the top 2 Best Comic Book Movies of the year. You know what's funny? I put up a poll without any explanation. I put up a poll on my Twitter page, and I asked, what was the best comic book movie of 2018? Now, this is before Aquaman or Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse came out, right? 83% said Avengers Infinity War. 13%, just 13% said Black Panther, and then a couple of percent said Ant-Man, a couple of percent said Venom. But 83% said Avengers Infinity War. I'm comfortable saying Black Panther is not the best isn't even the best comic book movie of the year. It's not even one of the top 2 best comic book movies of the year. And that's shocking for me to say because I've never cared about Miles Morales. But I'm telling you right now, Miles Morales is the best comic book movie of 2018. Miles Morales. Not Thanos. Not T'Challa. Miles Morales. But anyway, that's just my thing. I agree it should get nominated, but I really don't think it will, unfortunately. Stubble McShave writes, where are the former headliners Clive Owen and Eric Bana? Yeah, they just kind of both fell out of favor. I mean, with Clive, Eric Bana is a very quality actor. But I've always understood he doesn't really have big movie star appeal. I really think Clive Owen does. Despite the fact that I think they're both really, really talented. Let's see what Clive Owen is up to right now. Clive Owen, by the way, was just in City of a Thousand Planets. What was the name of that? So-and-so, City of a Thousand Planets. And I can't even remember the name of it right now. But he was it's called Valerian City of a Thousand Planets. He's done a couple of short films. Remember, he had his big TV series, The Nick. I had some friends that loved The Nick. I never watched The Nick myself, but a few of my friends love The Nick. He's got a few other movies coming out. He's got Gemini Man coming out. He's got The Informer coming out. He's got a few other things. Eric Bana has also gone very quiet. But yeah, these are two guys who were both pretty much A status. And now, not much, but hey, that's the business, right? Like, things come and go. Where are we at here? Anthony R. writes, your positive review of A Star is Born caused my girlfriend to subscribe to you. That's great. But she accidentally calls you John Cena from time to time. Well, of course, but you know, the only difference between me and John Cena is I am clearly have the much better physique. I mean, other than that, me and John Cena are practically the same. It's just that I clearly have the better physique. So just remind your girlfriend of that, and I'm sure there won't be any more problems differentiating us after that. And you're good to go. Thanks for that, Anthony. Murray Reich writes, have you seen the film North from 1994? Stars Bruce Willis and Elijah Wood, directed by Rob Reiner. Nope, never did. You know, it's funny. Somebody else brought that up the other day. I've never seen it. I don't even know anything about it. Like, not a single thing do I know about that movie, so no. Ant Banks, 1984, writes, has an actor played a villain so good that it was hard for you to keep yourself from hating them in real life? My mom and aunt hated Lawrence Fishburne. When he played Ike Turner, right? When he played Ike Turner. It's just a movie, Mom. You know what? I totally get that. And I'm sure Lawrence Fishburne would take that as a great compliment. He would probably take that as a great compliment. I'm a little bit different, though. I'm sure a lot of you guys are like this, too. I really respect people who can play good villains. It is tough playing a good villain. And so when I see somebody in a movie who plays a villain great, I instantly become a big fan. Big fan. Like the moment we saw, where do you start? I mean, whether you're talking Die Hard or you're talking Star Wars or you're talking Silence of the Lambs, or you're talking whatever, when somebody plays a great villain, I instantly become a major, major fan. When somebody plays a great hero, that's great. But it's when somebody plays a great villain that I instantly become a major fan. So I can totally see where your mom and your aunt are coming from, Aunt Banks. Totally do. But I'm a little bit on the opposite end of the spectrum. When I see somebody play a really great villain, I just fall in love with them. I just think they're great after that. All right, let's move on here. Richard Karate writes, What's better, Ice Cube's Friday trilogy or his Barbershop trilogy? Over under 30% that Ice Cube makes a fourth Friday movie, maybe called Last Friday. I'd love to see where these characters are now. I think there is over a 30% chance that we see another Friday movie. I've actually heard whispers about it. Now, that is by no means any kind of a guarantee. That's nothing like that. Lots of movies get talked about and bantered around, and some spec scripts get submitted and written, and nothing ever happens, right? But at 30%, I'll actually take the over on 30% that we get another Friday movie. I don't know that it's going to be called Last Friday, but whatever. But I will take the over. I'm not saying it's likely that it's going to happen. But I would actually probably go so far as to take the over on that 30%, Richard. I'd probably take the over on that. Murray Reich writes, over or under 50% that Holmes and Watson gets the same Rotten Tomato score as The House, also starred Will Ferrell. Man, The House was so bad. And what really broke my heart about The House, let me just bring up the Rotten Tomato rating here. The thing that really broke my heart about The House, geez, why can't I find it? Was that not only was it Will Ferrell, because I love Will Ferrell, but it was also Amy Poehler from Parks and Rec. And I love Amy Poehler. And I'll tell you what, it's got an 18% on Rotten Tomatoes. And I'll tell you right now, that is generous. Giving The House an 18% is generous. That movie was all kinds of ass awful. It was terrible. And I love Will Ferrell. And I love Amy Poehler. That movie was terrible. It is difficult to say whether or not Holmes and Watson will get that low because I haven't seen it yet. I mean, the trailers don't look good, but 18 is really low. So I will take under 50% that Holmes and Watson. I think it is likely that Holmes and Watson will get higher than 18%. But again, I haven't seen it, so I don't know. All I can do is look at it and say, yeah, it looks pretty bad. I don't think it's going to get a tomato. I think it's going to get a rotten. But 18% is awfully damn low. So I will guess, if you're drawing the line 50%, I'll take the over on that. I'm going to take that Holmes and Watson gets a better than 18%. That's my guess at this point. All right. Richard Karate follows up. Also, last question, John. With Joaquin Phoenix's Joker being outside of the DCEU, do you think that Affleck could return as Batman out? No. Sorry, for those of you listening, I'll finish the question. Do you think Affleck could return as Batman outside of the DCU while they cast a new Batman in the DCU? No, that would be a terrible idea. That would be, and it makes no sense. It makes no sense. Because he was Batman in the DCEU. And he's still Batman, but now he's not Batman in the DCU. Now his Batman is out, but now there's a new one. That just makes no sense. It would be confusing. If you're going to still use Ben Affleck as Batman, there is no rationale to not then continue to use him in the DCEU, because he already is the DCEU Batman. So you'd be adding multiple layers of confusion to the audience then. Look, the DCU is already going to have a little bit of confusion to deal with. There's movies outside the DCEU, and there's movies inside the DCEU. Birds of Prey, inside the DCEU. The Joker, outside. There's already a little bit of confusion there that Warner Brothers is going to have to navigate with the audience. You're just going to compound that by then saying, oh, and Ben Affleck is still Batman, but not in the DCU. Like, what? Like, it's just... There's no logic to that. There's no rationale behind it. As much as, Ben Affleck is my favorite Batman, as much as I'd love to see him, that's not the way to do it. I really don't think that's the way to do it. So I'm going to say no. No chance of that. No chance of that. Hands of Stone writes, thoughts on Amistad? I think it's underrated. Well, Hands of Stone, I've said quite frequently on my shows that, my favorite, I think the greatest filmmaker of all time is Steven Spielberg. And you ask a lot of people, what's your favorite Steven Spielberg film? Schindler's List will come up. E.T., Jaws, Close Encounters. What are some recent ones? Saving Private Ryan, Abraham Lincoln, on and on and on. And they're all great. My favorite Steven Spielberg film is Amistad. Amistad is my favorite one that he's ever done. I think it is his most underrated film. I think it is his best film that he's ever done. And it is the film that introduced us to Djimon Hounsou, who has gone on, surprisingly, to make a really good career for himself. And of course, he's in Guardians of the Galaxy and all that and he's going to be in Captain Marvel. And he's the voice of the wizard Shazam in Shazam. If you're watching the Shazam trailer, and you thought the voice of the Wizard Shazam sounded familiar, that's Djimon Hounsou, who got his start in Amistad with Steven Spielberg. It's my favorite Spielberg movie. Santez Henderson writes, hey, John, yesterday sent in a comment about Miles being side by side with Peter. Understand it's all subjective, but my issue with Peter is Marvel is not allowing him to grow beyond a teenager. Well, no, that's not true. First of all, Santez, look, if you like Miles Morales as your Spider-Man more than Peter Parker, there's nothing wrong with that. That's great. To me, it's not even a question. Peter Parker is Spider-Man. He is Spider-Man. There are other Spider-Men as well. You got your Gwen Stacy, you got Spider-Man, you got the Noir, and then in the comics, you got Miles Morales, obviously. But there's one true Spider-Man. The original, the real Spider-Man is still Peter Parker. But if your preference is Miles Morales, there's nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that at all. And I've become a Miles Morales fan now, thanks to this movie. But I don't know that I agree with you about Marvel not allowing him to grow beyond a teenager. They've had adult Peter Parker for a long time. We've had, Peter and MJ get married. We've had lots of different incarnations. Even in the Spider-Man video game, he's been Spider-Man for 8 years in the video game. The Peter Parker in this movie has been Spider-Man for a long time. He's a veteran. So now, whenever they do new incarnations of Spider-Man, yes, you go back to his origins. And his origin is, he became Spider-Man as a teenager. So that's where you start. I mean, with Batman, he always, his origin is starting as a kid falling into a cave with a bunch of bats. So that's where you start. And that's where you start with Peter Parker. But whenever he's been around long enough, like I'm telling you right now, if Tom Holland is Spider-Man for long enough, they're going to have him be college student Peter Parker, and they're going to have him be, adult Peter Parker. If he's around long enough. But then when they start it again, you'll probably want to start him because that's where the mythology of Spider-Man begins. But yeah, in every incarnation, be it the comic books, the movies, the video games, whatever, they've always moved beyond his teenage years. Do they go back to the beginning when they restart? Yes, so they should. But yeah, I'd say look into that. I think you'll be pleasantly surprised to see there's a bunch of different stuff there. Santez follows that up with a 20-something. He constantly doesn't learn from mistakes. I like Miles more because they have shown they are willing to grow him rather than keep him the same. And again, Santez, I think you're being very limited in your understanding of Peter Parker. They've done a hell of a lot with Peter Parker over the years in all of the mediums. Even in, Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man movies, they grew him up through the movies. So, yeah, I would disagree with you, man. I think facts would disagree with you there. I mean, I would see what you're saying if that was true, if they always just kept him the same. But I think when you look at every single one of the mediums, they have always evolved and developed Peter. And then when it's time to start again, they go back to the beginning, which is what everybody wants. So, yeah, I would say look into that a little bit more, Santez. I would say look into that a bit more. Rodney Hurd writes, I really enjoyed Aquaman and want to see it again. I've seen it twice now. I fully plan on seeing it a third time. I remember being so excited going into Justice League, finding out that they had cast Jason Momoa as Aquaman. I loved that. There was a time I actually thought Jason Momoa would be a pretty good pick for Batman. And I still believe he would have made a pretty good Batman. But I was always excited for him being Aquaman. I think he's a great Aquaman, and I've really enjoyed him in it. So I'm glad you liked it, Rodney. Curtis Lopez writes, it rubs lotion on the skin or else it gets the hose again. Of course, one of the classic lines from, weren't we just talking about Silence of the Lambs a little while ago? Anyway, yeah, Silence of the Lambs. Relaine, it rubs the lotion on its skin, or else it gets the hose again. I'm Upset writes, love the Into the Spider-Verse soundtrack. I'll be honest with you, I don't remember paying much attention to the soundtrack. And now, granted, I've only seen the movie once. I'm going to need to go and watch it again, and I think the next time I do, I'll have to pay more attention to the soundtrack, because you're not the first person I'm upset to mention that they really like the soundtrack. So I need to go back and listen to it again and pay a little bit more attention to it, I think. All right, Ben Rayner writes, are you missing Lance in Arrow this year? A little bit, yeah. There was something really good. Not that I think that his absence makes the show bad, because the show has actually been an improvement this year. This year, Arrow has been a step up, but I do feel that the Lance character was a very stabilizing anchor character. He was the grown-up. I mean, really. Lance was the grown-up in that whole scenario. And I do feel like you missed that a little bit. They've picked up other areas of the show, and I think the show is even better today than it was in recent years. But yeah, I do miss having Lance on it because, like I said, he was the stabilizing anchor. He was the adult. He was the grown-up in it. And I really feel like they're kind of missing that in the show a little bit. Curtis Lopez writes, put the effing lotion in the basket. Of course, going back to that, I like that. I'm Upset writes, more likely Zoolander 3 or another Fockers film. Well, neither really, but if one had a chance, it would probably be Fockers. After the utter disaster. Well, first of all, Zoolander 2 almost never got made. And then after it did get made, everybody wished it hadn't been made. You know what I'm saying? So Zoolander 2 almost never happened in the first place. And then when it did, we all wish it didn't. So I would say Fockers probably has the better shot. Zoolander is still one of my all-time favorite comedies. The original one, I cannot get enough. I can watch that movie every week for the rest of my life. I love that movie. But, oh, what an utter disaster. What an utter disaster. That damn Zoolander 2 was. Absolute disaster. Anyway, Jesse the Savage writes, Did you check the box office this weekend? I did. Yeah, when we talked about, Spider-Man coming in number 1, all that kind of stuff. Everything else kind of shook out the way everything was expected except Mortal Engines. They were thinking 10 plus, but man, it came in at 7 something. Not good, my friends. Not good at all. All right. RSN 2277 writes, hi, love the show and listening to you for 12 years. Well, thanks so much, RSN. Who can I listen to for football, baseball, soccer with similar format to yours? I want to get into sports. Well, I mean, really, there are a few people I've kind of modeled myself after. One of my biggest influences when I was getting started, when I made the world's first movie news podcast, it was back before they were even calling it podcast. Like the term podcast hadn't been coined yet. It was back in my movie blog days. And really, as a broadcaster, my biggest influence was a Canadian sports personality called Rob McCowan. And he was on the Fan 590. And I used to listen to Rob McCowan and Jim Shaky Hunt. I don't think Jim Hunt's alive anymore, but and actually, that's where I'm unabashed. That's where I got Greetings and Salutations from. I got Greetings and Salutations from Rob McCowan. That's how he would always start his show. And he was kind of my biggest influence at the time. So when I started my first podcast, my very first podcast, I started with Greetings and Salutations, everybody, as an homage to the guy who was my favorite sportscaster, Bob McCowan. And it's grown. Other influences, I think you would really like Pardon the Interruption on ESPN with Tony Kornheiser and Wilbon. Mike Wilbon and Tony Kornheiser, they're great. They're a lot of fun. Colin Cowherd is another guy who's kind of an influence. I mean, that's the thing. I've always wanted my show, because I'm a big sports guy, but I'm also obviously a major movie guy, and I've always wanted to talk about movies like my fellow sports fans talk about sports with passion and energy and excitement. And I've always kind of seen, what I've always wanted to do is make my shows, whether it was the movie blog audio edition, or whether it was For Your Consideration, or whether it was Movie Talk, or whether it's the John Campea Show. I always wanted to make my shows Sports Center for film fans. So hopefully that will point you in a couple of directions, and hopefully you'll have a chance to check some of those guys out. George Davies writes, greetings, John. First time sending in a super chat today. Well, thanks so much, George. I appreciate that, man. I just finished Sons of Anarchy. Nice. I just finished Sons of Anarchy today, and the ending left me slightly underwhelmed, but at the same time, it was oh so perfect. How did you like the ending? You know what, George, you just nailed it. At one hand, it was a very somber, subtle ending. Like, the show doesn't end with a bang. It's a somber, subtle ending, which, yeah, maybe you could use the word underwhelm. But then you reflect on it, and you're like, but it was also perfect. Like, really, there was no other way this show could end. It had to end this way. And that's the way they ended. And yeah, I mean, again, one of my top 3 favorite television shows of all time. I adore that. And you know what? It's because I loved it so much that I put off watching the new show, Mayans. Because it just looked like a poor man's version of Sons of Anarchy. But then I had enough people tell me, no, John, it's actually quite good. You should check it out. So I'm like, all right, I'll check it out. Really good show. Not as good as Sons of Anarchy, but really quite good. So I would encourage you, George, if you enjoyed watching Sons of Anarchy, and I'm glad that you did, I would recommend checking out Mayans. There's some good cross-connection with Sons of Anarchy, but it's its own show, and I actually think they've done it quite well. Edward James Olmos is brilliant in it, so if you get a chance to watch Mayans, I highly encourage you, George. I think you might enjoy it, so give that one a shot. All right. Sebastian writes, Alvin opened on 12/21 and Sing on 12/23. Schools don't get out until next weekend. For a fair comparison to those movies, Spider-Man has a 40 to 50 head start. I'll be honest with you, Sebastian, I don't know what it is you're talking. Alvin opened on 12/21, Sing 12/23. Schools don't get out until next weekend. For a fair comparison to those movies, who's comparing those movies? Sorry, Sebastian. I don't know what what you're getting to there. Sorry, man. Curtis Lopez writes, I work on the WB lot as a tour guide and Lucifer Films there, and from time to time I see Tom Ellis. He's a really nice guy. Dude, I'm such a big fan of Tom Ellis, and I've never even heard of him before Lucifer. But Lucifer is my favorite character on television. I'm not saying Lucifer is my favorite show on television, but the character Lucifer is my favorite show on television, and a lot of that has to do with the way that he's portrayed by Tom Ellis. I would love to meet Tom Ellis sometime. I've told everybody, I don't really care to do many interviews at all. Like, I don't do interviews. I don't care about doing interviews, blah, blah, blah. Tom Ellis is a dude I would love to interview. I would love to interview Tom Ellis sometime. I just love what he's done with that character, the life he brings to that character. He's just so infinitely enjoyable to watch playing that role. Love it. So I'm glad you had that. You get to bump into him now and again, Curtis. That's awesome. All right. Sebastian writes, concede Aquaman will make more than Venom. Tough. It is tough. Like we just talked about whether or not it can make 800. It is being projected that it could. I still have a hard time believing that it will, but then again, I didn't think Venom would either. And look how that turned out. But Venom is not just breaking 800. Venom was 852 million. Let's put it this way. I still don't think it will. Like I didn't think Venom will. But also like Venom, I would be thrilled if it did. I think James Wan made a good movie. I think Warner Brothers knocked out a good, solid movie. And I think it deserves every bit of success it can get. So like Venom, I don't think it will. But also like Venom, I hope I'm wrong. And I hope that it will because to me, it deserves it. It totally deserves it. All right. Michael Jones just sends in a super chat. Thank you so much for that, Michael. Really appreciate you supporting the channel, man. I appreciate that. I'm Upset writes, thoughts on Santa Claus trilogy, chance for fourth? No, I couldn't give you any thoughts on the Santa Claus trilogy. I think I've watched one of them once. Never watched any of them again. You know what? That might not be right. I might have seen the second one. I assume we're talking about the Tim Allen one. I might have seen the second one. But anyway, it's so unremarkable to me. I never even thought about it again. But hey, kids kind of things, Christmas, Santa Claus. Sure, there's a chance for a fourth one. But I really can't give my thoughts on the series as a whole. Darth Impact writes, in my opinion, I think the way it looks, Bumblebee is going to be the big winner of the Date of Death, getting good reviews. No, it won't. Like, the good reviews will help, but it's not going to change everything because Aquaman's also getting good reviews. Aquaman is going to win the weekend. I still think Mary Poppins will ultimately probably make more money than Aquaman will. But maybe we're wrong about that too. But I think Aquaman is going to come out and win that weekend. And I think it's going to win it pretty handily. I don't even think it's going to be that close. I don't think it's going to be, razor thin. No. I think Aquaman's going to win that weekend and win it very handily. But what happens after that? What happens after that opening weekend? Well, then that becomes a discussion. We'll have to wait and see. Bumblebee, look, I'll tell you right now, I like Bumblebee more than Aquaman. And that's not taking anything away from Aquaman, but Bumblebee to me is better. And oh my God, when's the last time I was able to say a Transformers movie was good? It's been a lot of years, folks. It's been a lot of years. This Bumblebee movie's fantastic. Really enjoyable. Got heart and humor, great action, repositioned the mythology of the Transformers. Primo. It's great. And yeah, I think it's better than Aquaman. But that's not taking anything away from Aquaman because I really enjoy Aquaman too. But I think Aquaman's a better film. But I think Bumblebee is the better film. But Aquaman will win that weekend. Nathan Oswald writes, buy your NES, SNES Classic now. They will be discontinued after this holiday season. Well, I mean, yeah, I've got one of them. Ann and I've got the NES Classic. We got one about a year ago. But honestly, I can just pop an emulator on my phone and play any NES or SNES. I don't really think it's all that big of a deal, to be honest with you. It's cool. It's a fun little thing, but there's so many different ways you can play those games now that you don't really need that. Darth Impact writes, also, did you see the trailer for Star Trek Discovery? It looks amazing. Yeah, and I think it does look great. And by the way, that's one of the things me and Robert Meyer Burnett totally disagree on. Robert Meyer Burnett just does not like Star Trek Discovery. I love it. I think it's great. I think it is a wonderful show. I think it's a wonderful piece of television. I really do. I enjoyed it a great deal. And I cannot wait for this new season to start. Rodney Hurd writes, which Batmobile would you drive in? Oh, probably the Tumbler from the Dark Knight Returns. Or sorry, from Batman Begins. Yeah, the Tumbler. The Tumbler's great. I love the Tumbler. So I'm going to be going with the Tumbler. That's for me. Robbie DeHara writes, I am Groot. I am Steve Rogers. Love that moment. It was. See, that is a moment, Robbie, that kind of highlights one of the things among many things that Marvel does really well. They understand in their movies how to balance things out. You can't go 30 minutes of straight intensity. You fatigue the audience. You can't go too long with straight silliness. It becomes a shtick. Marvel has always done a great job of understanding, pepper different things in to maintain some balance. So you got this great intense thing going on in Wakanda, drop a little bit of levity in there to keep the audience, give the audience a breath, give them something to laugh at, get back into the action then, reset it. And they've just always been so good at peppering those things. Some people criticize that about the MCU. You're nuts. That is a brilliant thing they do to really feed to the audience a good pace and a good balance of what happens when, knowing how far you can push the audience before fatiguing them, knowing when silly gets too silly so you bring it back, when to put in this. They've always balanced their films so well. And that one line is a great example of that, in my opinion. So good observation there, Rob. Okay, let's see. That was Rob. Okay. Oh, by the way, guys, I will finish off all the questions that have been sent in, but please do not send in any more Super Chat questions because I want to finish off the ones that we've got here. So let's see. David Goldstein writes, with Into the Spider-Verse being success, could you see Sony using Miles Morales in live action? No. Seeing Sony use Miles Morales in live action in Venomverse while keeping Peter Parker in the MCU? No. By the terms of the agreement, they're not allowed to have a live action Spider-Man going. Marvel does not want a competing live-action Spider-Man going on in other movies while they've got a live-action Spider-Man going. So that's in their agreement. So as long as Peter Parker is over there, you're not going to see a live-action Miles Morales. At least not a live-action Miles Morales as Spider-Man. Like, you might have Venom meet a kid named Miles Morales, but you're not going to see that kid as Spider-Man. You're not going to see that kid as Spider-Man. So, no. No, that's just not something you're allowed to do. And then that makes sense. Because if I'm Marvel, and I make this agreement with you to allow me to have Peter Parker on the big screen, I'm going to make damn sure that you don't convolute this thing by having multiple live-action Spider-Man going on in other movie universes. There's one live-action Spider-Man. If you want to go somewhere for live-action Spider-Man, it's in the MCU. And if you ever want to change that, fine, but then we got to get Peter Parker out of the MCU. So, totally get that, but no, we're not going to see live-action Miles Morales until the deal between Sony and Marvel ends. But thanks to the success of Venom, I think we're going to see Peter Parker stay very safely in the MCU for at least a few more years to come. At least a few more years. Murray Reich writes, sorry guys, my voice is starting to go. Murray Reich writes, Spider-Verse was very good, very heartwarming. Miles Morales was the best part. Kingpin was meh. Second end credit was cute. Sequel or Miles live action? Well, again, we're not going to see Miles live action because they can't do that right now. But a sequel, absolutely. Totally see a sequel. I didn't see either of the end credits. I left as soon as the movie ended. I didn't think there would be end credits, so I just split. But apparently there are end credits, so I haven't seen them yet. So I'm going to have to go back and watch it a second time. I thought Kingpin was great. I love their Kingpin iteration. I love the over-exaggerated physical stature of him. I love what his motivation was. They gave a little bit more of a dimension to him as a villain. Like, he's not just a mustache one. I want to destroy the multiverse. No, they didn't do that. They gave him a really great motivating factor for his actions, and I really enjoyed that. Yeah, I thought it was just brilliant, man. I thought it was brilliant. So no live-action Miles Morales, not until Peter Parker's done in the MCU. But a sequel, absolutely. Well, I mean, we'll see how the box office does. Good solid opening at $35 million. But we'll see if it's able to maintain legs. Because remember, we got Bumblebee and Aquaman opening next week. And Mary Poppins, by the way. So ultimately, if Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse tanks and loses money, no. But if it can make money, Yes, because definitely it's a great movie. One of the best movies of the year, in my opinion. Let's see here. John Demoto writes, where are we at? John writes, John, are you surprised Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse isn't doing better at the box office? Only around 35 million opening weekend. Overseas numbers are so-so. No, this is exactly, guys, we've been talking for weeks about this. This is exactly where they said they were going to come in. I mean, it's actually, and the numbers went up. Remember, the original projections were like 20 to 30, then 25 to 30, and then the final numbers a few weeks ago went up to 30 to 35. So I don't know why anybody's acting surprised. Look, it's an animated Spider-Man film. Not everybody's into this. I thought it was a bad idea. Remember? And I didn't like the first trailer. Remember? So if I didn't think it was a good idea, and if I didn't like the first trailer, then there's at least some other people that felt the same way. And so, no, I think it was kind of naive to think that Spider-Man was going to do much better. I mean, I remember got into one debate with somebody who was like saying, no, Spider-Man's going to make 100 million opening weekend. I'm like, oh, okay, I hope you're right. But disappointing, no, this is better than I thought it was going to be. Like, especially when I first heard about it. But again, it's coming right where they said it was going to come in. It's coming exactly where their expectations were. This is where it was. And again, guys, we got to think outside of our bubbles. While to us, the idea of a really good animated Spider-Man film sounds appealing, to a lot of the average movie-going audience, no, it doesn't. It does not look appealing. Now, we can get into debate about whether it should or shouldn't be appealing to them. That's a different issue, but it's not that appealing to a lot of the average movie-going audience. So, no, I'm not surprised at all. Not surprised in the least, unfortunately. This is a movie that deserves to be a billion-dollar film, but it's not going to be. But it deserves to be, but it's not going to be. All right. Scarlet Witch's husband, right? I like that username. I think Tony should take apart Nebula to build a new suit to get home. Except that Nebula is technology that is way beyond Tony. That's the thing. We always got to remember that as smart as Tony is in the MCU, he's not even the smartest guy in the MCU. Shuri is smarter than him. Remember, Kevin Feige and the MCU producers have already said Shuri is the smartest person in the MCU. She's smarter than Tony. But remember, Tony, as smart as he is, he's grown up on Earth. He's one of the smartest, but Earth's understanding of technology only goes so far. Tony wouldn't understand the first thing about Nebula's technology. So, interesting idea, but it's not something that would make any sense because he wouldn't understand the first thing about Nebula's technology in the least. Murray Reich writes, so, you think the Patriots are still Super Bowl bound? Oh, yeah. Yeah. You know what I love every single year, Murray? Every single year. The Patriots lose a key game or two. They start 0-2, they start 1-2, or they start 1-3, or they lose a couple of games. But then and then what happens? They're in the Super Bowl. So go ahead. Go ahead. Just think whatever you want to think. Yeah, they're still going to be in the Super Bowl. They're still going to be in the Super Bowl. So, now, I don't know that they win the Super Bowl, but if I put my money on it, I think you are ignoring history if you don't think they got a chance to be in the Super Bowl. And by the way, right now, they're 9-5. With how terrible their season has been, they're 9-5. So, yep, they're still going to be in the Super Bowl. You watch. And every year, this is just like, it's like a bad rerun, Murray. Every single year. I get at some point, the Patriots hit a bad loss or two. And I get inundated. John, now the Patriots are done. This is the exact same thing that happens every year. Every single year this happens. And what happens? Way more times than not, who ends up in the Super Bowl? Your New England Patriots. So, yep. So if you want to chuckle and laugh now, go ahead. Go ahead. I mean, look, I wouldn't put $1 million. Now, there's some great teams in the AFC. There are some truly great teams. But they've already beaten the Kansas City Chiefs. And this is the Patriots. And this is Tom Brady. He is the GOAT. And it's Bill Belichick, who may also be the GOAT. And they'll figure it out. Goku's son DBZ writes, hey, John, are you ready for WWE TLC tonight? I'm not watching it. To be honest, I don't watch a lot of wrestling these days. I mean, I will watch WrestleMania every year. And then maybe about 2 of the other big pay-per-views. So Ann and our friend Ryan and Kaori, they'll come over and we'll watch like about 3 times a year, always WrestleMania, always WrestleMania. But I really don't watch many of the other pay-per-views, to be honest with you. So nope, not watching TLC tonight. Eddie Burton writes, John Jones has more chances than cats have lives. Dude, don't even get me going on that loser. John Bones Jones should have been, after his like third chance, he should have been run. He should never be allowed to fight in UFC again. He should have been run out. I'm not questioning how great of a fighter he is, but he's also a scumbag. He's an absolute scumbag, in my opinion. In my opinion, he's a total scumbag. When you look at his pattern of behavior and all the things he's actually done, dude's a scumbag. And he has embarrassed the sport on multiple occasions. He has embarrassed the company. He's made, and like I said, he's made the entire sport look bad. And at some point, you just got to go, dude, you're a great talent, but you are toxic, and you got to go. And I just, yeah, he should be gone. It's kind of embarrassing that they let him fight still, but whatever. Elil J. Bays Adames writes, hey, Campy, I've been enjoying your show and your thoughts since the Arrow After Show. Oh, thanks, man. I appreciate that. Favorite season is still the second one. I agree. Second season is still my favorite season. Dude, I cannot, as much as I fell off the whole Arrow wagon once they got into season 3, you got to understand how big of a fan I was of Arrow season 1 and Arrow season 2. I was probably in the fan circles the biggest Arrow evangelist there was. Nobody was pumping and promoting that show more than me. And I was working hard every week to try to get more and more people to watch it because I loved it that much. But I call it like I see it. They started doing something really stupid in season 3. They went in a bad direction that ruined the show for me. So I'm not going to sit here and just go, no, I still love it. No, I stopped liking it because of what they did, so I said so. And now they're doing things that are actually pretty interesting again. So I'm saying, actually, I'm interested in this show again. But I agree with you. Season 2 was some fantastic television. Just some fantastic. And I don't think they've ever been as good since. But it always gives me hope that they can get back to that level of greatness. Because that second season, I agree with you, Elil. It was wonderful. I had such a good time with it, and I'm glad you did too, man. All right, Jason Loracella writes, hey, John, when do you think we will see Incredibles 3? I'm not sure that we are going to. It took them a long time to convince. I don't think they're interested in doing another Incredibles without Brad Bird. And it took them forever to convince Brad Bird to do a second one. And I honestly don't think he's all that interested in doing a third. So, honestly, I want to see an Incredibles 3 because I loved Incredibles 2. But honestly, between you, me, and the wall, I don't think we're getting it. I don't think we're getting an Incredibles 3, unfortunately. Let's see. Elio writes again, my girlfriend has been watching your show with me lately, and thanks to you, she bought me a Sphero R2-D2 and a Luke Pop. Keep up the filthy. I also have, Ann bought me an R2-D2. Or no, I didn't get an R2. I got a BB-8 Sphero. So I didn't know there was an R2-D2 Sphero, to be honest with you. So, okay, now I'm a little bit jealous. And a Luke Pop. I got several Luke Skywalker Pops behind me. But I'm glad I could be a positive influence on your girlfriend, man. So I'm happy about that. And actually, you got a really nice girlfriend to get you gifts and the things you enjoy. It's not all the time that us geek guys can find girls that will feed into our geek habits. So you've got yourself a winner there. That's great. All right. Let's move on here. Marie Seifring writes, the Grand Budapest Hotel, like that movie, is one of my favorite smaller Ralph Fiennes films. Great ensemble cast as well. Did you like? Oh, yeah, very much. And again, Ralph Fiennes, the cast is amazing. We've talked a bunch, Marie, lately about Ralph Fiennes because I believe that once Gary Oldman won his Academy Award, that changed the landscape of the discussion of who is the best actor not to have an Academy Award. And to me, it was always two guys. For most people, it was Gary Oldman. But for me, it was always two guys, Gary Oldman and Ralph Fiennes. Now, to me, it's no question. The best actor in the world who does not have an Academy Award that is still working today is Ralph Fiennes. He doesn't get all the leading roles anymore. But he is simply one of the finest thespians on the planet. Period. And by the way, his brother's pretty damn good too, Joseph. His brother's a damn good actor as well. But Rafe, to me, is simply the finest actor on the planet without an award. And the Grand Budapest Hotel is just another example of his work that he does this kind of stuff so well. You know what I mean? So yeah, but that's a good one. Guys, if you haven't had a chance, follow Marie's advice here. If you have not had a chance to watch Grand Budapest Hotel, I strongly encourage you to check it out because I think you're going to have a good time with it. Kevin writes, the most you've spent on a Funko Pop, and what was it? I've never spent a lot on Funko Pops. I mean, other than the sheer volume of Funko Pops that I've bought, I think the most expensive one I bought was probably the one that's on my desk on the John Campea show. And it's that Funko Pop of Captain America fighting Thanos. And I think I spent $20 on it. Maybe 23. I know I got it on sale. So maybe about $23 at most. But yeah, I'm not one of these guys, like one of my buddies, Ryan, he'll spend $150 on a collectible pop. I'm just not there. I don't spend that kind of money on that sort of stuff. But yeah, probably that one is probably the most expensive one I ever bought. All right. Tristan Brown writes, I believe it's senseless to kill Tony at the beginning of Endgame because if the Russos were going to kill Tony that soon, the death would have been more impactful at the end of Infinity War. Agree. No, not necessarily, and here's why. You and I haven't seen the opening of Endgame. We haven't seen it, so we don't know what will be more impactful. Like you and I at this point are just making guesses. We're just guessing in the dark. They could set up an incredible 15-minute scene at the beginning of that movie that has huge impact with the death of Tony Stark. They totally could. Now, I agree that I don't think that's what they're doing. I think Robert's nuts, but I often think Robert's nuts. But I think Robert's nuts for thinking they're going to kill off Tony in the beginning. But remember, even in Robert's theory, they're killing off Tony only to bring in a different timeline version of Tony immediately, right? So even then, it's not, even in Robert's theory of them killing off killing off Tony in the beginning, it's not really killing him. You know? It's not really killing him. It's just kill off this version of Tony, instantly insert this new version of Tony. That's all Rob's theory is. But so I agree. I don't think they're killing off Tony in the beginning. I think he gets rescued in the first 20 minutes of the movie. I think he gets rescued. I don't know that for sure. I'm just taking a guess. But again, I would not say his death would have been more impactful at the end of Infinity War when we haven't seen what they're doing in the first 10, 15, 20 minutes of Endgame. You can do a lot with 10 or 15 minutes. And they could set up the most perfect, the most beautiful, the most impactful death ever. Because remember, Tony's not a new character. Tony's been a character who's been around now for 10 years. You could set up a scene that could have major impact with the death of Tony Stark at the beginning of Endgame. You could. I don't think they will. That's not the direction I think they're going at all. But you could do it. So to say one is definitely over the other is impossible to say because we've seen one, but we haven't seen the other one yet. So we got to kind of acknowledge that at this point. But I agree, Tristan, I don't think that's what they're doing. I don't think that at all that's what they're doing. So you and I are on the same side on that. All right. Storm Chaser 78 writes, everyone is forgetting that John Wick 3 in 2019. Will it beat the Disney movies? No, but I think it will do well. Will John Wick 3 make more than the previous two? No, John Wick 2 made more than one. Well, this is the hard thing for a lot of people to get Storm Chaser. I'm glad you're pointing this out. The John Wick movies have not made much money. In as much as we love the John Wick movies, and I love John Wick, the first John Wick movie made $88 million. It wasn't some big blockbuster. Now, it made the money because they only made the movie for $20 million. It made the money. But the first one only made 88. Well, then I remember having this discussion with somebody that thought John Wick 2 is going to make $400 million at the box office. I'm like, all right, made 171. Which is a big improvement over the first one, but that was because of the strength of the first one. And that was done, I think, on like a $50 million budget. So again, it was profitable, but not exactly some big blockbuster film. I don't expect John Wick 3 to be all that big. And I'll tell you what, I don't think it's going to make as much as John Wick 2. Because I don't think John Wick 2 was as good of a movie as John Wick 1. Part of John Wick 2 Nay, the entirety of John Wick 2's financial success was built off the strength of the first John Wick. People loved the first John Wick, so they wanted to come out to see the second one. I don't think the second one had that same impact. I still love John Wick 2. I still think John Wick 2 was great, but I don't think it was as good as the first John Wick. So I think John Wick 3 will be a profitable movie again. I think it will be a great movie again. But I don't think it'll be a $200 million movie. It just doesn't appeal to enough people. So again, this is one of those situations where I hope I'm wrong, because John Wick is a franchise that deserves big success. To me, the John Wick franchise deserves much bigger success than it's had. But will it? I don't know. So I'm not so sure it'll have a bigger success. I don't know that 3 will make more than 2. I think 3 will make more than John Wick 1, but John Wick 1 only made $88 million worldwide. So yeah, that's fine. But I don't know that it'll beat $171 million worldwide that John Wick 2 did. But again, if they kept the budget within reason, they don't need it to make all that much money, right? To be profitable. So I know it's one of my most anticipated movies of the year, though, that's for sure. Thanks for sharing that, Storm Chaser. The Dr. 14 writes, John, Doctor Who Season 11 has a Rotten Tomatoes audience score of 35%. Should I be worried? Who cares? Never, ever, ever. I tell you guys all the time, never pay attention to what the audience scores are on either IMDb or Rotten Tomatoes. They are meaningless. They are absolutely meaningless. Because anybody can go on and submit any score they want. They don't even have to have seen the show. They don't have to have seen, if you're talking about a movie, they don't have to have seen the movie. They can go in, make 10 different accounts, make 10 fake things. The only audience score you should, if you really want to pay attention to any audience score, and I don't really think you should pay attention to any of them, but if you really want to pay attention, the only one you should pay attention to is Cinema Score, because it verifies people have actually seen the movie you're talking about. Now, this is a television thing. I wouldn't pay any attention to it at all, to be honest with you. I really don't care what an audience score says, because that score is too easy to fake. It's just too easy to fake. So pay no attention to it. It's not that audiences' opinions don't matter. It's just that those aren't representations of audiences' opinions, because it's far too easy to manipulate and fake. That's been made clear. Rotten Tomatoes has even acknowledged it at this point. You know, Rotten Tomatoes is like, look, there's no way that we can verify somebody's seen a movie. And if somebody has separate email addresses, there's no way we can stop somebody from having multiple accounts. So take audience scores for what they. So look, I don't watch Doctor Who, so I don't have a dog in this fight. I don't care either way. But I would, number one, don't be too encouraged if the audience score was really high. But also, number two, don't be too discouraged if the audience score is very low, because I think it's meaningless either way. That's just my opinion on that. Take it for what you will. Okay, let's see here. Sean Love writes, how about my Steelers, baby? Love you, bro. Stay filthy. Hey, look, I love the Steelers. Steelers are my top 5 favorite teams. I think they're great. They're way too inconsistent this year, though. I think they'll get into the playoffs. I like seeing them have some success. But again, if they run into the Patriots in the playoffs, they're going to get smoked. But I do like the Steelers. I do like the Steelers. Let's see. Storm Chaser 78 writes, I believe Alita Battle Angel will beat Ghost in the Shell 170 million, but will it catch Ready Player One 582 million or beat Pacific Rim 2 at 290 million? It's hard to say. I was talking to some friends the other day who are just big movie fans, and they're like, no one's going to go see the Alita Battle Angel. No one's going to go see it. It just looks too odd to the average movie-going audience. And I'll tell you what, the second trailer and the third for Alita Battle Angel got me on board. I didn't like the first trailer. You guys remember, I'm like, this doesn't look so good. But then I saw the second 2 trailers. It got me on board. I'm excited for Alita Battle Angel. But it does not look like they are capturing the hearts and minds of the average movie-going audience at this point. I think Alita Battle Angel is going to have some struggles. I do think it can cross at 170. It's not going to come anywhere near Ready Player One 582. It's not going to come anywhere near that. Can it be Pacific? I'm not even so sure about the Pacific Rim 2. I'm not even sure. I think if Alita Battle Angel can even become profitable, and I'm just not so sure it can. I'm not so sure it can. Because while they have made trailers that have really gotten me excited and become appealing to me, they have not been appealing to the average movie-going audience. And that's going to be a struggle. So I'm going to say yes, beat Ghost in the Shell. No, will not catch Pacific Rim 2. But again, we still got a little while to go before it. So let's revisit this question in a few weeks. Let's revisit this question in a month and see where we're at. All right. Thanks for asking, Storm Chaser. Haskell 420 writes, "Hey, John. I shared a new Schnepp tribute video made by JT Mahoney yesterday that had Heroes Episode 1 from AMC and 100th, declared a 100th episode, and ended up watching 4 hours of the best videos dedicated to John and yourself. And it's all part of one thing, so I'll keep reading. I know things are different now, but watching the old clips of you, Schnepp, Christian Ellis together, amazing. The insane chemistry and laughter you all had, and I hope one day in the future it can happen again." Well, look, I put up a tweet the other day. About me watching Spider-Man and the Spider-Verse. And I remember there were a couple of parts in the movie that I was just thinking, damn, Schnepp would have loved this. Because I remember certain things happening in Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse that were really reflective of personal conversations Schnepp and I had had at different times. And they would happen on screen. I'm like, oh my God, Schnepp would have loved that. And I know Dennis and I both wrote some stuff about that after seeing Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. I mean, he was the king of the sweaties. When it comes to like the sweaty stuff, he was the Bret Hart, man. He's the best there is, best there was, best there ever will be when it comes to that specific thing. He was just his contagious enthusiasm mixed with his great knowledge and his just overall like boisterous way of living life. I mean, he was, it's just insane. And, less than a year out, we still all really feel the loss of that and stuff like that. And hey, look, if Christian and Ellis ever separate themselves from where they're working now, I would love to do stuff with Christian and Ellis in the future. Christian and I still chat once in a while. He knows this. But yeah, that stuff's never going to happen again as long as the status quo remains the same. But yeah, there was some great stuff. I mean, I used to love it when me and Schnepp and Christian and Ellis could all be on a panel together. That was some of the best, most fun stuff I've ever done. Absolutely, some of the best and some of the most fun stuff I've ever done. And yeah, that was some really good stuff. So thanks for sharing that, Haskell. I really appreciate that. All right. Drew writes, have you seen Beautiful Boy with Steve Carell? No, still haven't seen it. And every time I looked, it's like, oh, it was playing and now it's not there. And I'm like, well, what? And I still haven't seen it. And I've been dying to see this movie and I have not had the opportunity to see it yet. And that really pisses me off. I need to see it before the year ends. Matt Tween writes, thank you for your rant on how CW treats Superman. Totally agree. I saw Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, loved it. Also saw Mortal Engines, too much crammed into the story, not good. Yeah, and I'm not even so sure. There are so many things that went wrong with Mortal Engines. Matt Tween, by the way, I love that name. There are so many things that went wrong with that movie that it's hard to put your finger on any of it. Did they try to cram in a lot? Absolutely they did. Like, Strike was just like, and I'm not giving anything away because you don't know who Strike is, but they have this character Strike who, okay, I guess this guy's here now. Oh, okay, I guess this guy does that. And oh, okay, I guess this guy's done in the movie now. I mean, there's so much randomness that's certainly one of the big problems. But I mean, I wouldn't say that is the one defining problem of Mortal Engines because, man, this movie's a mess. That movie's a mess. And I wanted to like this film. You guys know I'm a Peter Jackson fan. I thought the movie looked good. I was excited to see it. So disappointed when I was walking. So disappointed in that movie, man. So disappointed. But, and again, cramming too much in is definitely one of the root problems. But it wasn't just as simple as that. I mean, there was several really bad things about this movie, which is really too bad because I think the potential was huge. Okay. Where are we at here? Haskell 420 writes, John, did you watch UFC Fight Night last night? Fellow Long Islander Al looked great, and he did go 5 rounds with Khabib. What do you think of him? Well, first of all, I loved him. Look, let's be honest. He got his ass kicked against Khabib, but he did last. He did last, which is not something very many human beings on the face of the planet can say, is that they lasted against Khabib, the best fighter on the planet right now. And he did. And I thought he had guts and hearts and courage. But no, I did not watch it because I was out at the movies last night. Me and a bunch of friends and Ann, we went to go see Aquaman last night. So I have it sitting on my DVR waiting for me to watch. But I have not watched those fights yet. I haven't even looked up the results yet. I haven't even looked at the results. I've stayed away from my Twitter most of the day. I did not go. Every day I go to MMA Junkie, and I did not go to MMAJunkie.com today. So I kept my eyes away from that. So I'm going to watch it. So yeah, so I'll let you know my thoughts on it once I actually have a chance to see it. Raymond Verrata writes, superhero ring runs in the family. Lou Ferrigno Jr. has been cast as Our Man in the DC Universe Stargirl. Yeah, I heard about that. I didn't even know Lou Ferrigno had a son, let alone had a son that was into acting. But I remember reading that. I thought, oh, that's interesting. I mean, I don't know whether or not to be happy about that or not, because for all I know, Lou Ferrigno Jr. is a shitty actor. I mean, for all I know. So I don't know whether this is something to be happy about or not, but it is certainly interesting. It's certainly interesting to see that. Let's see. Where are we at? Mark C. writes, saw Into the Spider-Verse, really enjoyed it. Thanks for the recommendation. I'm glad you saw it. I'm glad you liked it. I was shocked by it. And I love it, man, when I get to see a movie that legitimately shocks me being good. Because so often we go in to see movies that we are disappointed with. I love it when I can see a movie not only that lives up to its hype, but that actually shocks you being much better than you thought it would be. Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, so much better than I thought it would be. I'm glad you had a chance to see it, Mark, and I'm glad you enjoyed it, man. Matthew Garrett writes, I've heard you say a few times that you were in seminary. Yes, just curious. What happened there? Love what you're doing. Dude, you're asking for a half-hour dissertation. It's too much to go into now. I can't go into it now. I mean, that's just way too long of a story. But I've certainly talked about it a lot in my various social media and stuff like that. But again, here's the basic premise is this. I just eventually grew kind of disillusioned that the North American church doesn't look anything like what Jesus lived. So I'm not going to get into religious talk because I know you guys are not here for religious talk, but I'm just saying, and ultimately that turned me off and made me move away from it all. So, but I mean, look, that's a far too oversimplification of everything. I could go into it a lot deeper, but I mean, that's just the basic understanding of it. R.C. Murphy writes, Spider-Verse was amazing, deserves a Best Picture nomination at the Oscars. What other films have ever won or come close to winning a Best Picture nomination? What other films have ever won or come close to winning a Best Motion Picture? Well, RC, every year there are tons of movies that get nominated for Best Motion Picture. Let me read it again. Maybe I'm just not understanding what you're writing. Spider-Verse was amazing. I totally agree. Deserves the Best Picture nomination at the Oscars. I also totally agree. It's not going to, but I totally agree it should. What other films have ever won or come close to winning a Best Motion Picture? I must confess, RC, I'm so sorry you took the time to write in a question, but I don't know what it is you're asking. I mean, every year there's a large number of films that get nominated for Best Picture every single year at the Academy Awards. I have a feeling you probably just didn't say it right. So my apologies. I don't know what it is you're asking. I apologize for that. BMC writes, do you want James Wan to direct the sequel? Sure. Yeah, look, I'd be totally happy if he directs the sequel. Be totally happy if somebody else directed it. But it'd be nice to see him come back to do one more. It'd be nice to see him come back to do one more. I don't want to see him get, sidetracked by Aquaman and just stay on Aquaman forever. But one more, yeah, I'd like to see him do one more. Big Bub, I like that name, just sends in a super chat. Thank you so much, Big Bub. I appreciate that. Tristan Larson writes, Maisel Season 2 and Castlevania Season 2 are both amazing. I haven't watched either yet. Again, Ann and I are probably going to watch, I think Marvelous Mrs. Maisel is my favorite show on TV right now. And we're going to wait till we go to Canada to watch it. So we're going to watch a few episodes on the flight there, probably watch a couple episodes while we're there in bed, and probably a couple episodes as we're flying back and get caught up then. So I haven't seen it yet, but I'm super excited. And I got all these people, including you, Tristan, telling me about how good it is, and I'm super stoked about it. All right, final question of the day. This has been a really long open mic. We've got like over an hour and 45 already. My voice is shot. My throat's really sore, guys. Anyway, RR101 writes, I saw Spider-Man with my kids yesterday, and I did tear up a couple of times, which is so weird. I'm 40 years old. At some point in the movie, I totally forgot that it's animated. Yeah, and I'll still admit, I still don't love the animation style. I'll admit, I still don't love the animation style very much. But the movie's so good. I just saw past the animation. You know what I mean? I just saw past the animation style. And was because, I said this on the show the other day, but it's true. This movie, they didn't sit down and start off, let's make a good animated movie or let's make a good superhero movie. They start off with, let's make a good movie, period. Forget that it's animated. Forget that it's based on a superhero character. Forget all of that. Let's start with a story and with rich characters, and with great interactions between them, creating difficulties they need to overcome. Let's just make a good movie that just so happens to be animated and just so happens to be about this superhero character, but let's just make a good movie. And you could totally tell that they did. And I was so absorbed in it that even though I don't like the animation style, I just saw right past the animation style. And I know a lot of people love the animation style of it, and that's great. I didn't love it so much, but that's okay. I was able to see right by it, and it's still one of my absolute favorite movies of the year. And I agree with you. At some point, you just even forget you're watching something that's animated because storytelling is storytelling is storytelling. So you get past that and you look past that, and it's just so good. So, guys, I cannot emphasize enough that you guys need to really go out and see this thing. Toothless, I already said no more questions, but I will take this because Toothless is trying to clarify something. Toothless rates, RC meant which animated films have come close? Well, there have been 3 animated films in history. There have been 3 animated films in history that have been nominated for Best Picture. The first one ever was Beauty and the Beast, and then the other 2 was Up by Pixar and Toy Story 3. Those are the 3 animated films that have been nominated for Best Picture. None of them won, but those are the 3 that have happened. I would love to see it if that happened again this year. I would love to see that this year. And then Haskell, who wrote in, even though I've asked several times, no more questions, but Haskell did write in. John, any updates on the Starz Continental Series? None. I haven't heard a single thing. For those of you who don't know what he's talking about, Starz announced a while ago that they're going to do a John Wick Universe TV series based on the amazing Continental Hotel, which is, of course, the harbinger for the hitmen and the assassins, right? So, but no, man, I haven't heard a single new thing about it yet. So, I haven't heard that anything was canceled. I have a feeling they're going to wait until John Wick 3 comes and goes out of theaters and then piggyback off that momentum. That's my guess at this point, but I haven't heard anything official other than that. All right, guys. That will do it for me for this 1 hour and 50-minute long installment of Open Mic. Thank you guys so much for being here, being a part of this. I hope you guys had a magnificent weekend, that you're rested, energized, ready to go into Monday and kick next week's ass. Don't forget, guys, I'll be back again tomorrow with the John Campea Show. Make sure you come on by. Me and Robert Meyer Burnett are going to be in studio talking about all this sorts of good stuff. I hope you're there to join us as well. Also, tomorrow at 3 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, I will be doing an open spoiler discussion of Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. That will be tomorrow at 3 o'clock. And then Tuesday at 3 o'clock, we're going to be doing an all-open Avengers Endgame theory discussion. So any theories you have about what's going to happen with any of the characters at any point in the film or whatever, that's what we're going to do. Now that you've seen the Endgame trailer, we're going to see how that has evolved and changed some of our theories. We're going to do that on Tuesday at 3 o'clock. And, of course, every day, Monday through Friday, we've got the John Campea Show at 9 a.m. if I have a voice at all. That'll do it for me for now, guys. Thank you so very much for letting me be a part of your day, guys. I'm truly honored that you let me be here. That'll do it. My name's John Campea, and until our next video, bye-bye.